A cold and piercing howl erupted through the dead, fog-strangled forest. Shrieking for help, a young girl ran through the thorns and the branches that tore away at her blood-stained prom dress and wild, flaming locks. She had just witnessed horrors her own nightmares could have never conjured. The taste of his lips still lingered on her own. She could still feel the warmth of his embrace on her pale skin. Memories of their young romance flooded back to her between flashes of his body being eviscerated before her widened eyes mere moments before. Her breath added to the fog that surrounded her as she struggled to cry out for help. The winter air had burned her throat, turning her frantic, terrified screams into soft, broken whimpers. One after the other, the heels of her shoes snapped beneath her weight, causing her to stumble a few times before she finally took them off and tossed them away. The shrill, inhuman din rang through the trees once again. Birds erupted from the treetops and flew off into the night. A stampede of deer, raccoons, squirrels, and other creatures flooded the forest floor, darting about and around the young girl, retreating from the beast that hounded her so. She did her best to follow the animals, but tripped over an exposed root. Tumbling through the leaves, she fell down into a hollow. The scampering and squealing of the terrified woodland creatures faded away as she did her best to lift herself up from the cold, wet ground. Looking up, she saw it. Its hooded head resembled a human skull, with bright white and glowing orbs in the otherwise empty eye sockets. Like a long, serpentine tail, its spine spiraled out from beneath a ragged cloak that covered most of its skeletal body. Bits of flesh still clung to its grayed bones, from which a strong stench of decay seemed to radiate. Its eerily long arms slowly reached out to her, its sharp fingers extending and stretching in desperation and hunger. The poor girl tried to scream as she struggled to stand, but her throat was too dry and sore. Before she could even pull away, that massive skeletal hand wrapped around her tender waist and lifted her into the air. She closed her eyes and began to recite the Lord's Prayer, but before she even got to the seventh word, the creature sank her head into the blackness of its mouth and pierced its long, sharp teeth into her neck. Blood spurted out onto the creature's hideous face as the teenager's body went limp. It crunched her skull within its jaws and slowly began to consume the rest of her, just like it had done with her boyfriend about half an hour prior. The sounds of snapping bones and sloshing blood filled the forest once again, but not for long. In that very moment, a young man leaped from the trees, brandishing two Egyptian khopesh swords, the blades of which were glowing a brilliant golden. Just as the creature began to turn around to face him, the warrior sliced his weapons through its old ancient bones, forming a quickly fading X in the air. He landed on his feet as wet, bloody organs and old gray bones crashed onto the forest floor before him. That golden glow of his swords was as bright as his shining green eyes. Neatly trimmed stubble perfectly framed his thick lips. The sides and back of his head were shaved, but the top was in short locks, the tips of which were dyed gold to match his blades. Ankh charms dangled from his multi-pierced earlobes, followed by a multitude of golden rings. He was caramel-skinned, and his muscular torso was framed by an unzipped, studded leather jacket, his abs accentuated by a dangling chain. A pair of skinny jeans were wrapped around his thick thighs and calves, and his shoes were combat boots that matched his jacket. His name was Alistair. It wasn't the name his loving mother had given him, but he was no longer her son. He wasn't even certain if he was human anymore. It had almost been 6 entire years since he had returned to Atlanta, to his mother, to his older sister, to his friends, to those bullies at his school that caused all of this. His heart ached, but he knew that he wasn't the same. He wasn't right. He wasn't normal anymore, and he knew that he would just frighten his loved ones away should he come out of the shadows and into their light. Droplets of blood splattered across his face, but he did not bother to wipe them away. Taking a deep breath, he looked up into the sky. "That's all 13, he grumbled, furrowing his brows. "The first 3 were still in Georgia, 4 were in Tennessee. I got the next couple in the Carolinas, and I followed that one up through the mountains and found 2 more in Virginia, and this one led me to Buffalo, New York. Looking down at the hilts of his darkly enchanted swords in the palms of his hands, he opened his fingers, revealing that the handles of the weapons has been fused to his very flesh. Black blood vessels pulsated throughout them, pumping his own life force into the blades. The glow slowly faded. The silvery metallic color of the blades turned to the golden hue of his skin tone, and their sharpness turned soft, their hardness squishy. Every inch of them both then slowly shrank into the palms of his hands, leaving 2 bloody, fleshy, open slits. "And you fuckers aren't going anywhere, are you?" he groaned through his raspy, tired voice, gazing down into them. In a flash, he was back there all those years ago. He could still hear that beautiful boy's deep, masculine, melodic voice wrapping around him like satin, like warm sunlight coaxing him out of his shell. Kyle had ever so seductively invited him to a large graveyard after school, and Alistair was more than excited to finally be alone with him. "Isn't that the same kid that bullied you?" asked his protective older sister. She stood in the open doorway of his bedroom, watching him meticulously draw on his eyeliner in the shape of a powerful Eye of Horus. Alistair scoffed. Standing up straight, he turned back to her and smirked. "That was way back when we were freshmen, Audrey," he replied, as if his explanation were obvious. "We're grown men now. They call it senior for a reason." She chortled and raised her freshly trimmed brows in amusement. As she crossed her arms, her long, intricately painted nails caught the light. "Oh? Well, maybe you can get an after-school job instead of spending all your time at the skate park, since you're a man now and all." Hip-hop was blaring from the speakers on his phone. Strips of flashing electronic lights aligned the top of the walls just before they met the popcorn ceiling. A small bookshelf, overflowing with the words of poets, rested in the corner of his bedroom. "Come on, sis," said Alistair, presenting the finished look to her. He had on a black graphic t-shirt that featured brilliantly colored gold chain designs. "Let me have one more night of freedom, and I promise I'll start looking for a job first thing tomorrow morning." She raised a single brow. "You know I'm going to hold you to that, right?" He nodded. As he approached her, the small, understated golden chain around his neck glinted in the light. "I hope you do," he admitted through a smile. "I know it's been hard on you and Ma since—" Audrey's smile faded at once. As she shook her head, the glittery beads on the ends of her ombre black, violet, and pink microblades clicked rhythmically. "Nuh-uh. We are not going to talk about it," she warned, wagging an accusing finger into the face of her younger brother. Alistair arched his brows. "Audrey," he began. "No, look, Junior, I know you think he's some flawed, torn, complicated person that he ran off to go and find himself, but the truth is a lot simpler than that." "And what is the truth?" She scoffed and shifted her weight onto the other foot. "The truth is that our father doesn't care about anyone but himself. What he put Mama through wasn't just wrong, it was straight up evil. He abandoned us, little bro. He abandoned his own children." 2 emotional cries erupted from behind her. It was the twins, having overheard the truth that was hidden from them for so long. Little Leah and Nia were all red-faced, crying as if their little hearts were shattered by this revelation. Nia's afro puffs were held up by pink ribbons. Her frilly matching shirt was already wet from her tears. "You told us Daddy was coming back," she sobbed. Leah's hair was done into 3 thick twist braids, 2 on the sides of her head and 1 on the back. She was wearing a little white dress. "I want Daddy," she squealed. "Damn it," spewed Audrey, glaring at her brother. "Now see what you did." Alistair sucked his teeth, watching her turn around and kneel down in front of their little sisters. "What I did?" he demanded. "What the fuck ever. I'm out." As he rushed by his sisters and out into the hallway, he heard the eldest scoff. Ignoring the sarcastic words she grumbled under her breath, he made his way out into the small living room of their cramped inner-city apartment. Without even thinking, he punched the family portrait on the wall to his right as he walked by, completely shattering the glass. A large lightning bolt of a crack separated his mother, his father, his 3 sisters, and himself, as they all smiled widely, standing in front of the family food truck. After stepping out into the Atlanta heat, he slammed the door behind him, eager to leave another family feud in the dust. As he walked down the stairs of his large apartment building, he found himself grinding his teeth. Hot tears began to stream down his face. His family just hadn't been the same since his father disappeared late one night, leaving nothing but a simple handwritten note to his mother. "My beloved Ira, I'm sorry, but I have some things I need to take care of, and it may take a while for me to tie up these loose ends. You've changed my life in indescribable ways, but I could never begin to explain this shadow of mine that haunts me so. I pray to God that you know just how much I love you. Just know that my heart will break more and more every second that I am away from you. Eternally yours. Daddy was always gone when I was young, out on business, grinding, hustling so that we could have food on the table, clothes on our backs, a roof over our head. He growled, making his way down the sidewalk of the busy street. Ignoring the traffic, he stormed across town. Audrey should know his sacrifices more than anyone. Soon he made his way down to the old abandoned church on the edge of town. His anger slowly faded as he saw Kyle standing there, softly smiling, silhouetted by the setting sun. The tall, muscular teenage boy was dressed in a red and black plaid overshirt with the sleeves rolled up, a black tank top beneath it, a pair of blue jeans, and his scuffed tennis shoes. As usual, his short blonde curls were perfectly coiffed. "Hey, buddy," he exclaimed in his deep southern accent. "I'm real happy you showed up." Alistair chuckled as he walked through the open gate of the old cemetery. "Did you think I wouldn't?" he asked. Kyle shrugged his shoulders. "I don't know, man," he said awkwardly, scratching the back of his head. "After the hell I put you through, I really didn't think you would have given me a chance." Chewing his lower lip, Alistair stepped forward. "A chance? For what?" he asked, growing more curious with each passing second. His former enemy blushed. Looking away, he slid his hands into his pockets. I think I might like you, Junior," he admitted. "I know that might sound crazy because I spent the last few years picking on you for being sweet on the boys and all, but..." Taking a deep breath, he turned back to face him. "I think I was just jealous because I didn't have the courage to be myself like you do." Alistair was breathless. He felt as if he were dreaming. All he could do was quietly gaze into Kyle's beautiful blue eyes and replay every memory of him calling him homophobic slurs in his mind. I don't," he managed, shaking his head. "I'm sorry, this is just a lot." Kyle's goofy grin died a sloppy death. "I'm sorry, for everything. Every night I cried myself to sleep because I felt so guilty over what I was putting you through." Alistair shook his head. "It's just kind of funny because when we first met, I thought you were really cute." Those blue eyes widened under his thick raised brows. Really?" he asked. "Yeah, until you opened your big fat mouth anyway." Kyle chuckled a bit. As Alistair laughed as well, they grew closer, almost automatically. With just a couple of moments, they were face to face. "So, you invited me out here just to apologize?" Alistair quietly asked, running his fingertips over the bare, toned forearms over his former enemy. The young southern white man shivered a bit and pulled away. "I'm sorry, he managed, shaking his head. "Oh man, that was like lightning." Alistair awkwardly chuckled, confused by this. Is that a good thing?" Flashing a charming grin back to his former enemy, Kyle nodded. Yeah, I think so," he said, tilting his head. May I hold your hand?" Nodding enthusiastically, Alistair slid his hand into Kyle's, and their soft, warm fingers delicately interlaced. The two of them began to walk deeper into the green, flowery cemetery, heading to a large mausoleum in the distance. "Your parents are homophobic, aren't they?" Alistair suddenly asked. Seeing the confused expression on his new friend's face, he chuckled. "I mean, that's gotta be why you were so closeted that you were literally bullying another gay boy, right? They raised you around and within some religious-fueled hatred, right?" Kyle laughed a breathy laugh, but it was clear through his face that he wasn't amused. "My parents are good Christian people, yes," he dryly replied, his voice laced with a hint of aggravation. "And I don't know if I'd consider telling you the truth to be bullying, Junior. Homosexuality is a sin, and nothing you can say or do can change that." Studying the bully through a squinted glare, Alistair released his hand as they both stopped directly before the mausoleum door. "Then, what is all this really about?" he asked, feeling a panic rise within his gut. "Is this some kind of religious intervention or something?" Kyle chuckled. "Something like that," he slowly bellowed, nodding. "'Cause I ain't no faggot, that's for damn sure." In that moment, the large stone doors of the mausoleum opened, revealing Kyle's camouflage-clad crew within. As Kyle wrapped his thick, muscular arms around Alistair, binding him where he stood, the other boys gathered around them, slinging slurs and spitting like animals. Soon the first punch was thrown, and it was by none other than Kyle. The rest of his lackeys cheered in response and began to beat on Alistair as well. Sickly sounds of bones cracking filled the air as they threw him to the cold stone floor of the crypt. There they began to violently kick in his ribs. A pool of warm blood soon surrounded Alistair. As he softly wept on that dusty floor, he stared off to the side, thinking of his older sister, hearing the raucous laughter of his male classmates as they began to walk out into the twilight. He found himself wishing that he could just die right there in that old, dank mausoleum. "Now that's bullying," boasted Kyle just before spitting one last glob onto Alistair's back. He then pulled those old doors to a close behind them, leaving his victim alone in the darkness. Their boisterous laughter soon faded away, but the pain did not. Alistair's entire existence was nothing but agony in those long, empty moments. In the cold, black void, he thought he heard the cries of a wounded animal, but soon realized that these sounds were his own sobs. Suddenly, a golden glow appeared above him. It highlighted what looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs that had been long carved into those cold, dark walls of the tomb. "What?" he managed, mentally convincing himself that he was hallucinating. "Why the hell would something like that be in Atlanta, Georgia?" Weakly looking up, he saw a long, straight line of that radiance peering out from a crack between the old stone casket and its heavy lid. As he shakily pushed himself up from the floor, a long, eerily grinding noise sounded from before him. The lid was slowly pulling away from the casket, all by itself. Alistair was dizzy. He was certainly out of it, yet he was sure he was seeing the truth. In the glow of that strange light, he saw that old stone casket for what it truly was, an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus. Lined in gold, painted in the deepest reds and the brightest blues, it was nothing short of beautiful to the young man. At first it sounded like the wind swelling through the trees, then it morphed into something akin to ocean waves, then to the dull roar radiating through a dark, dank cavern from the depths of the molten core of the earth. Echoing in whispers and screams alike, the spirits of the swords began to speak to their new master. "At last you've come." Their voices were ringing from the very blades themselves.
We are proud, and we have been awaiting your arrival through countless ages.
They were Egyptian kopeshes, or sickle-like swords, their blades jet black with radiant lines along the sharpened edge from which that magical glow was flowing. Their hilts were carved into the beautiful figure of the goddess Isis, the guards her colorful wings, and wrapped in the skeletal hands of their former master. Alistair's eyes were filled with their glow. He slowly made his way over to the open sarcophagus, reaching trembling hands out for these enchanted blades, watching as some sort of organic material, almost tentacle-like in nature, retreated from the shadows within the bones like vines, and slipped back into the hilts. He hesitated.
"You need us,"
the swords whispered and screamed. "The world needs you." Taking a deep breath, Alistair closed his eyes, forcing out the last of his tears. He then dove his hands into the chilling air of the sarcophagus and wrapped them around the hilts of the ancient glowing swords. Almost immediately, a sharp pain shot into the palms of his hands, as if they had been stabbed through, showing him that perhaps he had made a grave mistake. The swords had released those vine-like appendages into his hands. They were violently pumping and throbbing, sending some burning chemical into his blackening veins. With a loud, agonized shriek, the young boy fell backward and quickly lost consciousness in the eldritch glow of those strange, ancient blades. He awoke in the darkness at such atrocious sounds. The swords had vanished from his grips, and the crypt had seemingly returned to normal, at least from what he could see in the darkness. The young man was more concerned with the awful, terrifying screams he was hearing just outside, however. It was a chorus of agony, the voices of which he immediately recognized. A chilling, inhuman roar accompanied it, however, along with consecutive sounds of bones breaking, blood sloshing. It was absolute chaos, and it filled him with horror. At first, Alistair thought he was in some sort of nightmare, even though in his darkest of dreams he had never heard such horrifying sounds. As he picked himself back up, he realized that his bleeding wounds had inexplicably healed, along with his broken ribs, and in that moment, he knew that what he was hearing was all too real. As he pressed his back against the wall and did his best to control his breathing, the countless pained screams slowly morphed into a few desperate groans. These then faded into a deathly silence. Almost trembling, he turned around. He pushed the doors open slightly, allowing a strip of moonlight to streak down his face, only to flinch and step back into the darkness. What he had been hearing was nothing compared to what he had just seen. The ripped open bodies of Kyle and the other bullies were strewn around the cemetery, their blood flooding to the ground. Some of them were on graves, others were hanging over the stones and the statues. Chunks of their corpses were missing entirely, some of them headless, as if something had been eating them alive. Fighting down his urge to vomit, Alistair crept out into the night. In just a few seconds, he regretted it. A creature, defying the laws of gravity, slowly floated out before him from above the mausoleum. It was gigantic and looked similar to the top half of a human skeleton, if it had been somehow stretched and warped to look as if it were constantly wailing. One by one, more of these cloak-clad creatures appeared from around the mausoleum. They each slowly turned around to face Alistair in silence as they eased in toward him, their jaws unhinged, and multiple simultaneous dins, like shrill emergency sirens, rang throughout the cemetery. In reaction to this awful sound, the sword's ancient arcane magic was triggered. What looked like liquid flesh poured out of the palms of Alistair's hands before taking the form of the blades and turning solid. Their color returned, as did their sharpness, as his hands wrapped around their hilts. It was automatic, mechanical, instinctual, the way he dove into action. Perhaps it was the swords themselves, but Alistair reacted to these creatures as if he knew exactly what they were and that they needed to be eradicated at all costs. Flashes of images from what looked like ancient Egypt darted throughout his mind like consecutive bolts of lightning. He felt love, he felt fear, he felt righteous fury and determination. Beneath all of that, however, he felt pain the likes of which he had never before. Those 13 creatures seemed to know the swords more than they did Alistair, however. Upon seeing that gold radiance, they began to retreat. Some of them took off higher into the dark skies above, while others dove into the forest that surrounded the cemetery. Within a matter of moments they were gone, leaving Alistair alone in the middle of countless eviscerated corpses. Those dreamlike echoes from a past he could only vaguely recall swam around his head, overlapping, glowing brightly and vividly, quickly dizzying him. He swooned, catching himself from falling. Blinking repeatedly, he looked around, struggling to compose himself as tears filled his eyes. His heart was broken, but it wasn't for Kyle, nor was it for the rest of his peers. No, he knew in his blackening heart that they all got what they deserved. If he had awoken just a bit earlier, he wouldn't have saved them. Perhaps, if one of them had escaped, he would have finished the job. For the darkness that now flowed through him was ruthless and bitter, and altogether unforgiving. It seemed as though he'd been granted his wish. He did indeed die in that cold stone tomb. Instead of flying with the angels like his mother had always described, he was reborn, no longer a boy. He was a killing machine. He could feel the bloodlust flowing throughout his black, protruding veins, yet beneath a fiery sky of rage was a deep ocean of agony. All the memory he could conjure was a masculine silhouette, holding duller versions of those same swords that were now fused to him. He was unable to make out a voice, a personality, or even a face, but the pain was all but crippling. Sniffling, he looked to the swords in his hands. He watched their golden radiance slowly fade just before they softened and became flesh-toned. As they poured back into the fresh, open wounds in the palms of his hands, he winced at the sting and began to softly cry. "I'm not going to be able to go home now, am I?" he whispered, gazing down into those bloody cuts. The Buffalo, New York forest surrounding him was quiet and still as he recalled these moments. Looking back at the pile of organs and broken bones that rested before him, he slid his hands into his jacket pockets. Stepping into it, he ignored the sickly sound as it made and faced forward as he made his way up the hill that the unfortunate girl had fallen down a few minutes prior. "The night is still young," he whispered, looking up at the glittering stars in the deep blue satin sky. "Let's see what other trouble we can get into."